Hi everyone! Today we are going to do another one of our review videos. Like our first one, it's not going to be of the same book. I'm going to be reviewing The Private Lives of Pippa Lee by Rebecca Miller.
And I'm going to be reviewing Naked Lunch by William S. Burroughs.
So, I picked this book to review because I think that she is an underrated author. People hear about her movies, like even when I was trying to do some research on this book, it's actually hard to find information about the actual book. Because even on Wikipedia, they don't link to a page about the book. It's linked to a page about the film.
That's right.
And the film's quite different than the book. It has a bit of a different quality to it. When I read this book, I have to admit the reason that it kind of went on my radar was she is
the wife of Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yes, the wife of Daniel Day-Lewis, and he's such an interesting, artistic,
a fascinating actor.
Character.
Yes.
That I thought his wife's gotta be pretty cool, and I wasn't disappointed. So I have notes, so I'm probably gonna read them a little bit. So I'm sorry, but what I liked most about this book is that it was like a female existential life crisis. Like, we start the book and she's in a lull. She's living comfortably, but she's in a lull. And much like books about men in their middle age who are coming to this kind of like stale point in their life, she kind of starts reflecting on her past from all the way back from childhood to like her mid-20s to, you know, like, and then to like raising of her children. It all has those elements of a male existential crisis story, but it's got a very female perspective. It talks about her relationship with her mother, then how that impacted kind of the decisions she made, and how she starts to discover her sexuality, and then how she ends up leading to being married to her husband, and then how she ends up raising her own children. But it's all told in this like non-straightforward narrative way, which normally I don't really like. She's just revealing little bits of the story to you through her kind of actions.
It's a form and content.
Yeah. The writing style is absolutely beautiful. It's quite removed. So the form and content in that sense really go together because you're very removed from her when you start. Like, I'm gonna read the first little paragraph. Pippa had to admit she liked the house. This was one of the newer units, they were told. Dishwasher, washing machine, dryer, microwave, electric oven, all new. So your introduction, you're already like removed. She's not saying, I liked the house. She's saying, Pippa liked the house. So you're not doing the I, it's not her telling the story. So already as the audience, you're removed from her.
Is the whole book in the third person?
No, then it changes. You know, here it says, Herb called me from a phone booth on Park Avenue.
That's curious.
And I mean, I wasn't reading this when I read it to review it, so I can't tell you exactly when that changes, but I know that it does. And another thing that's really interesting is it has this very like kind of Stepford wifey kind of introduction, like she's the Stepford wife now. Right. But all she's doing is categorizing her possessions. So this very removed list of, you know, she's defined herself through this house, this dishwasher, all these things. And she starts to, as she starts to kind of unravel and as she starts to kind of explore, it's not even, it's unhappiness, but it's not like this wallowing. I don't like to just talk about plot with reviews. I am more interested in kind of like how the author leaves you feeling, and you experience this isolation from her, and then you start to get to know her, and as you start to get to know her, I know the perspective starts to become more intimate, and I really like that about the style. Another thing I really liked is it handles the past and aging and coming terms with your past really, really beautifully. Like, she has all this traumatic stuff happen to her in her past, but for her present self, you'd never guess. And her aging, her husband's aging, are treated really sensitively. But it also explores how just because you're older doesn't mean you're different. Not a lot of books do that. A lot of books about older people are them like, you know, becoming better people, or like coming through change, influencing the new generation. This book has none of that. As the book goes on, you realize she's exactly who she was, and her husband is exactly who he always was. And it doesn't like make them bad or good characters. And you never take a side in this book, which is something I also really like about it. I really like it. I think that she's very underrated. I did try to read her next book and I couldn't do it. I think it's because she was doing something else with that book, and it was a lot more opulent and a lot more indulgent.
It was also period.
Yeah, so it was indulgent. And this book is so simple, and the themes it explores are so well explored, and I love how it handles like female relationships, female romantic relationships, your relationship with the self, all those things so beautifully and starkly without all the sentimentality of a lot of female writers writing about like aging women. This has none of that like quaintness and embrace your older body, all those things. She looks very starkly at her body and criticizes it and also accepts it at exactly the same time. So I really like that about the book, and I recommend it. I don't know how much I gave it on Goodreads, but I just think it's a very good read, and it's a very interesting read.
Naked Lunch is one of my favorite books, so I might be a bit tongue-tied only because I think so highly of it. I suppose the best place to start would be to say that it's not your typical novel. It's very fragmented. It's very a hodgepodge of sort of sketches and routines, and almost closer to a short story collection than a novel, because some of what happens doesn't really relate to other things that happen. There's certain overlapping elements, there are characters, there's a book ending, it begins and ends much in the same way. Actually, something about that I want to say about the film.
You should preface.
I should preface, okay. Naked Lunch is also one of my favorite films. It's directed by David Cronenberg. He's one of our favorite directors. And he made the film. He loves Burroughs as much as I do. What's interesting about his film is that it's not a straightforward adaptation. It's almost a hallucinatory take on the author's writing of the novel, which very much contributed to the structure of the novel, which is, as I said before, unconventional. He wrote it primarily in Tangier, primarily under the influence. Legend has it he would be at his typewriter all day just throwing pages on the floor, and later amassed the pages into this novel. Who knows for sure? That's the legend. Cronenberg's legend is far more hallucinatory and involves
typewriters turning into monsters.
That's right.
I haven't actually read the book. No. I'm kind of saving it.
I know you
because I know I'll love it, but...
The book ending, that's what I was talking about. The book ends with a line that is at the beginning of the film, and the film ends with a line that is at the beginning of the book. So there's sort of a cyclical kind of
smart.
structure
I love
there.
That.
Yeah, he obviously has a lot of respect for Burroughs.
Wonderful.
Though I know Burroughs criticized the film for its heterosexual leanings. Burroughs is a very outspoken queer writer. He and Ginsberg were two of the first American writers who were openly homosexual. So for that to be Cronenberg's take on the film, Cronenberg, a heterosexual filmmaker.
But he's also kind of obsessed with like male, female.
Yeah.
I don't know even if you could say heterosexual or just the opposite sex and how they relate to each other.
Yeah, no, I
he's
understand
very
that.
Obsessed with that.
His exploration of that, and it's not as though he completely overlooked the homosexual elements of Burroughs' person. Burroughs was actually married and to a woman, so it wasn't it wasn't a complete departure, and it's not as though in the film he doesn't have relationships with men. So
he probably Burroughs is like, at the time I couldn't make things as gay as I wanted, and now they could be, and this wasn't gay enough. Maybe.
Yeah, who knows? Disclaimer: Naked Lunch is sexually explicit, and I know this will discourage some readers. It might also encourage some readers. I found it interesting. He's a very graphic writer, he doesn't pull his punches. He,
Was it like in the vein of Henry Miller, or would you say it's like more subversive? sexual content though, like
subversive versus exploitative, right. I'd say it's more subversive without going into too much detail, particularly for the time. Some very taboo sexual interactions, you know?
Yeah, but people say that about Henry Miller. But I found it just kind of like heterosexual bullshit.
I haven't reread it for a while. I've been meaning to. I just pick it up. It's the kind of book that you can pick up every now and then and just open it to a chapter because it's not a straightforward narrative, and that's something I like about it. But as a result, I haven't actually read it cover to cover since the first time I read it. So I can't say. What I remember is that it is very subversive. There's sex, there's violence, there's homosexual, there's heterosexual. And it's all very subversive.
Well, I will read it one day.
Read it. And everyone else, read the book, watch the film. They're both fantastic.
Well, that's it for review.
Yes.
Our reviews today. Hopefully our next will be a haul, because we have a book depository order coming.
We do.
And a chapters order coming. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too. I
never buy new books, so this is really, really exciting. So, that's it for now. Bye.